So this is the all-new Lenovo Legion Pro 5i, and look, it's a good laptop. Straight up, it's a good laptop. But I'm kind of getting confused because Lenovo's taken a few steps back. They did it with the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i, and they're doing it with the Pro 5i. They say they want to save us money by omitting a bunch of features which usually would be associated with the name of Pro, but it's still an expensive laptop. Like, don't get me wrong, I get it, the RTX 40 series cards are causing laptop prices to go up, plus inflation and all that other kind of stuff, but I feel like these little features they're removing doesn't make this product feel like a Pro product anymore. In fact, it starts to blur the line between the regular Legion 5 and the Pro model. Now look, it's not much of a change from last year in terms of the design. In fact, they made the design characteristics very similar to the Pro 7i that I reviewed not too long ago. It looks pretty much identical. The only thing that's different is you're buying the Pro 5i instead of the 7i, and you don't get all the features of the 7i. But if you compare it to last year's model, you get a bit of a lid change. You know, last year's version had more of an angular cut at the top. The Legion logo was in the top middle. It was like a gray and black theme. This is more of just a strict standard black color. It looks a bit cleaner. Overall, the design is fine. You have all your ports mostly at the back, but they did change a couple of things about those ports, which kind of drives me crazy. For one, the Thunderbolt port that was on the left-hand side is completely gone now. There's no Thunderbolt 4 port on this laptop at all. It's gone. And there used to be two Type-C ports on this side, and now they changed one of those Type-C ports to have a USB-A port instead. Not a big deal, I think it's a fair trade, but on this model, you only get two Type-C ports compared to three on the previous one. On the other side, you still have a very similar look with a USB-A port, a camera privacy shutter switch, you have your combo audio jack, and then on the back, you have your power connector, two USB-A ports, HDMI 2.1, another Type-C port, again, not Thunderbolt 4, and the RJ45 jack, which they actually flipped back. If you don't remember, on the previous one, it was facing the opposite way. Not a big deal for most people, but I thought I'd mention it. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't feel like a Pro premium laptop. The laptop, in fact, is mostly made of plastic. It still feels good, but it doesn't have that allure that a Razer Blade 16 would have. But then again, that does cost a lot more money. It weighs about 5.43 pounds, but if you include the 300-watt charging brick, you're adding another 2.23 pounds to the entire mix. So this does get up in quite a bit of weight. But if you're bringing this to class all day, you don't have to bring this thick, heavy brick. You can just bring a Type-C charger and that will keep you going. A lot of the stuff is pretty much the same. Like, you can easily open it up with one hand. The screen goes all the way back 180 degrees. In fact, this is a fun fact, by the way, you could actually stand this laptop up and it won't fall. Let's see if I can do it on camera without looking like a punk. See, look at that. Oh, let's try one more time, okay? I don't know why you need to do this, but I was trying to take a shot the other day and I was like, you know what? This could probably stand up on its own. Okay, now it's not doing it. Okay, now all of a sudden, it's not doing it, but I got it to do it earlier. Come on, laptop, don't make me look stupid on camera. The deck of the keyboard is plastic. You do have a plastic touchpad, which I believe it used to be glass on the previous model. It's now called a Mylar, which is just a fancy name for a fancier plastic, but you know, it's a fairly good size. Most people will probably be using a mouse connected to this, but if you're in class again and you're using this, it's not gonna feel as good as a proper glass one. Keyboard deck is a completely different color. If you remember, on the previous unit, it was gray to match the deck of the keyboard. So what they did here instead was they gave it more of a black look, which is fine because it allows the RGB to pop out more. You have different zones that you can customize. This is not per key RGB. If you want per key RGB, you got to upgrade to the Pro 7i, but this does have RGB on the keyboard. The switches are fantastic. They feel great to type on. They're very clicky, they're smooth, and you do have that full-size numeric keypad. Now, the one thing that kind of irked me was one of the software changes, and it's not a big deal. Again, I'm nitpicking here, but if you remember the previous version, if you load up their Lenovo Advantage software and you look at the menu, you had options to configure different performance profiles. You can obviously do that by just hitting Function Q, and you can toggle between silent and balance and obviously performance mode, but you were able to do that right here in the Lenovo Edge menu. There used to be a thermal profile on the previous one that allowed you to do it manually instead of hitting a shortcut. It looks like they completely removed that. The display is still 16 inches, it's still 16 by 10, it's still QHD, and it does support 165 Hertz, but I believe there's also a 240 Hertz model. This panel is very similar to last year's. Doesn't get as bright as the Pro 7i, but the color accuracy and the color gamut are fantastic on this display. It's a great gaming display. If you play a lot of games and watch content, you're gonna really enjoy using this. If you want something brighter, then you're probably gonna have to move up to the Pro 7i. Of course, there's still a muck switch built in, and all you have to do to change it is go into the Lenovo Advantage software, then you have a bunch of different options to choose from. If you go between any of the hybrid modes to direct GPU mode, you'll have to restart the computer. So that's the only kind of annoyance, but that's pretty standard for most gaming laptops. I should also mention the hinge is nice and stiff. You're not gonna have any major wobbling. Like if you're typing on the keyboard, it's not gonna go all over the place. There's a little bit of flex on the keyboard, but I feel like it's strong enough that it doesn't feel soft when I'm typing for long periods of time. But this is an interesting model because this is the 4060 inside of here, and they're pairing it with an HX processor instead of a regular H like they did last year. So better CPU performance. You add in the DDR5 RAM, a very fast NVMe SSD. It's a very attractive package. Now the GPU does run at 140 watts, which is great. And if you're looking at single core and multi-core clock speeds, you do get a nice performance bump compared to last year's model. The funny thing though is it doesn't really translate into massive performance jumps compared to last year's 3060. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a faster laptop overall compared to last year's models, but the jump is not as big as I'd like it to be, maybe 15%, which is kind of standard for year over year, but I don't know, I wanted a bigger jump going from the 3060 to the 4060. Now, if you're a gamer, you will see anywhere from a 10 to 15 FPS jump using the newer model. Some games, they only saw 4 to 5 FPS difference, games like Cyberpunk, for example, which is not that impressive. And the same holds true if you're playing at QHD+. One thing I did like, though, was that the fan noise on this guy is significantly better. Like, their performance profile tops out at 50, whereas on the previous model, you were looking at around 55 decibels, which gets extremely loud. They're obviously limiting the fan noise on this computer, which means this probably has a bit more thermal headroom, but they don't want you to allow the fans to go louder. They want to give you more of a quieter experience. The good news, though, is you still get better performance. Even clock speeds were slightly higher when strained under full load compared to last year's model. The one thing that I really like, though, was that thermals were way better. Last year's model got really, really hot. CPU temps were really close to 100 degrees Celsius. On this guy, they were in the 80s. They stayed in the 80s the entire time, just offering a more cooler experience. Now, the internals are interesting because the Pro 7i has a vapor chamber if you get the 4080 and the 4090 model, I believe. This guy's the 4060, so I guess it doesn't need one, but you do have a lot of copper running back and forth to keep the CPU and GPU cool. 2 slots for storage, one of them is populated. You do get good read and write speeds. 2 2-watt speakers that face downwards. They're really nothing to write home about. They're definitely not pro. And you have 2 slots for RAM, upgradable to 64. And as per usual, you do have that swappable Wi-Fi 6E card. Now, the one thing that was really disappointing was the battery life. Like, this is a 80-watt-hour battery, and I only got 2 hours and 31 minutes before needing to charge. As you can see here, I'm wiping it down because it's been accumulating fingerprints throughout the entire video, which is normal for a darker laptop. Doesn't matter what company you buy it from, it will get fingerprints. But look, here's the thing. Lenovo's been doing a great job with the Legion lineup in terms of consistency. They offer great performance, it feels consistent, and there's not a lot of problems when it comes to actual gaming. My issue is the Pro name. Companies are just throwing this around at everything. And once you start removing features that were Pro before, it really begs the question on what is Pro? What does it actually mean? To me, it means everything, right? You have Thunderbolt 4, you have pretty much everything you'd expect in a high-end gaming laptop. And yes, you are saving a bit of money by removing these features, but then it doesn't become Pro anymore. In fact, this laptop is starting to feel a lot like the regular Legion 5. And I feel like if you're looking at this, you might just save yourself some money, assuming you don't need a high-end GPU, let's say a 4060, and get the regular Legion 5 instead. The thing is, Frank and Anna, who go to the computer store to buy a laptop, are going to see the Legion 5 and the Legion 5 Pro, and the sales rep there will say, why don't you get the Pro? It's a Pro. You get one more RGB. And because of that, they might just spend the extra money, take it home, and not realize they're pretty much getting the same laptop as the cheaper Legion 5. It's a good product, but it's not Pro. To me, this is not a Pro product, and I hope Lenovo and other companies start releasing Pro products that actually feel Pro. Anyways, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Sorry for my ramble. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.